that story that I shared about my friend, she wasn't actually listening to her intuition. She wasn't hearing the voice of her body. And all of us are getting feedback from our bodies every single day.
Mm.
But many of us are so tuned out, so busy, so detached that we don't hear it. And then what ends up happening is the whispers become louder, and then we end up with a diagnosis or a condition.
I am Lisa Roers, former executive coach turned podcaster and digital course creator. Just a few years ago, my typically unwavering optimism was put to the test when my autoimmune system went sideways and handcuffed my dreams to positively impact the world. Fast forward, though, through years of failed experiments, dozens of doctors, and countless hours of research, and I am now a healthy, thriving CEO of a business that is positively impacting the world by empowering people to exchange fear for fortitude and dis-ease for durability. I created the Sunshine Cafe podcast to give you strategies to be your best self-advocate so you can focus on the things which light you up. If you're looking for hope and encouragement to live a life you love, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and today we're going to talk about the tiny voice. Yeah, it's that tiny voice inside all of us, which is actually our body crying out for whatever it needs to stay strong, healthy, flexible, and durable, and how that voice changes over the course of our lives. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how to listen to that voice and take action to help our bodies achieve balance, healing, and complete wellness. So in this episode, we're going to shake it up just a little bit, and you might learn some truths that might frustrate you, because science shows us and proves to us that you are not in pain because you're getting old. How you're feeling is not just who you are. And while you can say, oh, that's just the way I am, you'll realize that you actually can change that. It doesn't have to be that that's just the way you are. You can change your health. You can change the course of your aging. You can change your vitality, your energy, and the impact on this world can all be directed by you, if you want it, and if you choose it. With me today from the beautiful land down under is Sheryl Carroll. Sheryl is an ex-banking professional turned integrative health practitioner and health coach. While working as an accountant, Sheryl learned that critical process of how to ask the right questions to excavate the root cause of the ledger issue. And now those banking skills are being used to help women connect the health dots and resolve the things that are holding them back from living with radiant energy, feeling strong and confident in their mind and body. Sheryl's mission is to inspire women to make their health a top priority, enabling them to reach their fullest potential in life and really to learn how to hear that tiny voice from inside their body before that voice becomes a shout or before it's too late to make a change. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. It's so great to have you. Sheryl Carroll, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Well, my listeners will tell right away that my friend Sheryl here is not from the U.S. She has this lovely Aussie accent. I just love it.
It's actually South African. It's a South African accent.
All right. So I was wrong on that, but it's lovely either way. Sheryl is in this beautiful place of integrative health practice and integrative health medicine. And I just thought, given the things that we've talked about here on Sunshine Cafe, that it would be really encouraging to have you on the program so we could hear a little bit about what integrative health medicine is and what holistic practice is. But let's just first introduce yourself to the audience, and maybe you can tell them a little bit about who you are, why you are in Australia, and some of the things that you're doing down there with your business.
Yes, thank you so much. So I am actually a chartered accountant originally by profession and did that in South Africa, traveled to London, spent my life auditing banks, and then made my way to Australia where I settled down with my husband and we now have 2 little kids. So really where my journey ended up in holistic health was through a very sad event in my life, probably the most traumatic event I've been through. which was when my very close friend who'd traveled the world with me from South Africa, and her and I had always been incredibly interested in health. So we'd always been the ones who were gymming first thing in the morning before work. And we were the ones who were seeking out the healthy yogurts and the salad bars and all of those sorts of things. And she was diagnosed with bowel cancer when I was pregnant with my daughter. And so there I was, and it was very aggressive. It was found very late. She wasn't listening to the messages from her body, which I think so many women don't, because we become disconnected, which we can talk about later on. But she obviously had completely missed the cues or just failed to listen to the whispers that had then become shouts of her body. And so she was diagnosed in August and she passed away in November, like a month after my daughter was born.
That's a very fast progression.
Yeah. But actually I'm so grateful that her suffering was so condensed, because it was horrendous seeing her go through that, as I'm sure a lot of people that have seen loved ones go through something similar, unfortunately. So, but it was a very conflicting time for me, because here I was bringing a new child into the world, and somebody who was very similar to me, who'd always been interested in health and followed healthy practices, this was their fate. And I was like, surely this can't be. This sort of thing can't just be left to fate. There is more to it. Because she was very young. She was 35. So I had this like narrative in my head. I'm like, there's got to be something more to it. Like I felt like I need to understand. So kind of fast forward to when I was on maternity leave with my son. When I was pregnant, I said to my husband, I want to do some kind of education around nutrition, because I want to validate that the choices that I'm making for my family are the right ones. You only know what you know.
Right.
And am I making the right decisions when it comes to our nutrition? Because I just felt like there was more in nutrition than what I'd kind of just learned along the way as being healthy, which now in hindsight wasn't so healthy. So anyway, fast forward, I was chatting to a friend of mine in South Africa, and she was doing the Institute of Integrative Nutrition health coaching certification. She was telling me all about it. And I was like, wow, this sounds phenomenal, because what she explained is that, yes, we talk about food, but this is where they started to plant the seed around holistic health with me, that it's actually more than the food you put on your plate. It's about the thoughts that go on in your head. It's about how you move your body. It's, what they call primary food. It's not just, how you fuel yourself. That creates your sense of well-being in your body. So I started off on that journey, and it was very, very, very empowering to start to learn this stuff. But I wanted more. I wanted to go deeper to really understand our bodies more. And then that's when I had started following Dr. Stephen Cabral, who's based in the US. And so he's a naturopathic doctor, and he brought together naturopathic medicine, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, functional medicine. And he created a health coaching certification where level 1 was all around lifestyle medicine, and level 2 was about doing these functional medicine lab tests and actually learning how to read stool tests, organic acids tests, hair tests, so that people can actually see what's going on in their bodies at a root cause level. And that, like, marrying those two together was very instrumental to me actually realizing, well, this is what I'm meant to do, because it's all about getting to the root cause of these things that are going on in people's bodies, whether it's anxiety, gut issues, sleep issues. There's much more to it than just, take a pill or whatever it is, which is how traditional medicine will go about it.
Right. Well, those blood and hair tests too then give you metrics where you can actually see what's happening in the system. And it's very complementary to the blood work. But it's more than just that. There's our body is telling us different stories from lots of different angles, and you can't look at just the blood.
And unfortunately, a lot of that sort of testing is very expensive, and it's preventative. It's looking into things from a functional lens, and people's health insurance doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
So it is cost prohibitive to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So generally what we have to go on is symptomology and how people feel, what's really going on. But that requires people to be very deeply connected to their habits, to how they feel, what makes them feel worse, what makes them feel better. So a lot of the accountability shifts onto the actual person to get more in touch with themselves, their bodies, which I think a lot of us disconnect.
Right. Yeah. We talk a lot about that here actually at the Sunshine Cafe, that it's really up to us to be our own self advocate, that we need to partner with Western medicine to bring our piece of it to the table. It's not to say that Western medicine doesn't have its place, but I think all too often we come to the table and expect them just to tell us everything about what we're supposed to do. And we have to really learn our bodies, and we have to learn how to listen to those bodies. And that kind of process comes through a lot of trial and error. And, it's much like trying to figure out what a little 2-year-old's saying. Like, do you want the apple? No, he doesn't want the apple. Do you want the banana? No, he doesn't want the banana. You have to try the same kind of thing with your body to learn what your body is saying. And that's a process.
Absolutely. And it requires dedication.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So true. I'm still trying to figure out what language this body speaks. I'm not sure I have figured it out yet either.
I think that's the tricky thing, because my focus now is women in perimenopause. There's anybody from the age of 35 plus, so perimenopause, menopause, what some people call postmenopause, because what's going on is that our body is actually changing. It's like it's the second puberty. So that connection to self is a changing situation. So that also requires a lot more kind of tweaking and being more flexible in your approach, because something that worked last month may not work this month. So
yeah, because your body is different now. Right. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
And I don't know about where you are, but we don't talk about that era of our life here often enough. I remember getting into my 40s and, all of a sudden these changes were happening and nobody had talked with me about these changes. Nobody asked me permission for my body to do that, right? But yeah, there are a lot of changes, and I've never heard it necessarily said as the second puberty, but that's a good way to say it. And it's a complete changing of your body. Your hormones change, your constitution of your body changes, your emotions change. There's so many things going on.
Yeah, and it's like from a health perspective, our immune system is changing. So there's a lot of instances of autoimmune conditions that pop up in perimenopause. It creates high levels of inflammation. It impacts our ligaments in our joint. Like, there's a huge connection between things like frozen shoulder and ligament injuries and stuff, and the hormonal shift. And it's like a whole body affair. It's because there are hormone receptors in every single part of our body. So when our hormones are changing like this, it impacts us systemically. And that's what exactly as you're saying, it's like I had this idea that perimenopause was literally just, one day your period stops and that's it. You can no longer have a baby. But it's this real recalibration of body and mind, and I think soul to a certain perspective, because women do go through a bit of a midlife crisis, because we lose the shield of our hormones, which have been priming us to care for others. And now it's a time for us to look to ourselves. And I think a lot of women end up in this phase of life, potentially kids leaving home and that kind of thing. It's like, whoa, what makes me happy? Like, who am I?
Right.
What do I want?
Right.
Yeah. So it's really it's such a powerful time, but I think it's about educating women to see it as a positive transformation rather than like a death.
Sure. And yet I think it's important to educate people, even maybe younger, because there's a lot there you go. Right. There's a lot of friends of mine who went into perimenopause early and didn't necessarily realize that meant they couldn't stay focused on their career and delay having children, because their perimenopause ended up coming earlier than they were expecting. And we don't really talk about that as much. We do talk about pursuing your career and pursuing your dreams and all of that. But there's a lot of people who after age 35 have a really difficult time getting pregnant. And so if it is your dream or your goal to hopefully have children someday, The fact that we have a tendency to push that off means a lot of people struggle with fertility issues. And that's a whole nother level of heartbreak and emotional hurt. And then you start throwing all the emotional roller coasters that come with the hormones that you take to try the fertility modalities. And it can completely messes with your mind.
Yeah.
So early education to understand what that window of time looks like so you can make decisions that are important to you. And some people really want to have children. Some people really don't. And that's totally fine. But to be educated and understand what's coming and what that window looks like, what to expect.
Yeah, because I think even looking back on it myself, I had my kids at 37 and 39, and there were miscarriages in between that. I'd been through a phase of running marathons and partying like a rock star when I lived in London, and I didn't have a period
Mm,
for 10 years.
mm,
So my body was very depleted, and I had to work to get my period back to then enter into the journey to have kids. But actually, my hormones were already starting to shift from the age of 35,
mm.
because I think the more stress you have, the earlier you start to experience these subtle or kind of not so subtle hormonal shifts that we're just not really cued into.
Sure.
And, the world today that we have, it's the mental and emotional stress. We've got chemical stress, we've got sleep disturbances. There's all of those different things that all add to the stress bucket of our body, and that has a knock-on effect to the health of our hormones.
Sure. All right. So the integrative or holistic medicine, are those words kind of synonymous? Do you use them either integrative or holistic? Are they one and the same?
I see them as being one and the same, because
Okay.
really what it is, so in my definition, and maybe somebody else would have another definition, it's really about integrating all the different lifestyle practices to support somebody to achieve their optimal health and wellness. Some people just focus on nutrition, or other people are just focusing on exercise. But to me, it's the various pillars, which
Mm.
are nutrition, exercise, detox, stress management, sleep, mindset is huge, emotional health is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure your nervous system balance is a very key part of us being healthy. It's obviously the hormone side of things
Mm-hmm.
as well. So that's really what I see as being integrative and holistic. It's really just looking at the whole person to see what helps to support the body and the mind to work well.
Well, it's one of the reasons I was so excited to meet you, because when I was going through my autoimmune issue and trying to get to the core problem that was affecting my body, the modalities here in the Western medicine world, outside of functional medicine, outside of integrative health, we have this beautiful way of specializing, which is really
Mm,
great when you have something wrong with a very specific part of your body. But so many of our chronic issues now, especially the immune issues and autoimmune issues, they're not just one specialty. Like you said, they involve so many different modalities. They involve the stress and the physical
the gut
movement and
is huge.
it,
Yeah.
it's everything. And that's what I needed in order to heal, is I needed to look at the entire body and all the things that were happening and address all of them. Maybe not at the same time, but you have to start addressing all of them
Mm.
in order to get complete healing. Otherwise, it's kind of like Tetris. You're just shifting blocks around, but you're not actually clearing anything if you don't address all of them.
I really enjoy working with women who have autoimmune conditions, because it's really about just giving them hope, because it's, as you know, you can put it in remission. And I think so often people with autoimmune conditions are told that, sorry, it's just something that you got to live with. But actually,
Yeah.
you can put it into remission, but it involves a lot of work, as you know, and it involves a lot of taking action and then recalibrating and taking action and recalibrating, but never losing sight of or losing the idea that you can heal.
Hmm.
Because when there's even like a touch of doubt, like with anything in life, if you're somebody who wants to lose weight, if you're somebody who wants to put an autoimmune condition into remission, if you've got even a 1% doubt in your mind that it's part of your future, it's you blocking your own transformation. So that's a really a big part of it
Yeah.
as
Well,
well.
like you said, if you have doubts in your head about whether or not you're going to be successful, those doubts will creep in at the 11th hour when you really need the belief that you're going to make
Mm,
it. So, yes, how we think has so much power.
We become our thoughts. So if you don't think it's going to happen, then it won't happen. So that's really, really big in all of the coaching that I do. But then going back to autoimmune thing, it's really what I get all of my clients to do is we zoom out and I actually get them to do like a full health history back from the moment they were born.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you have a cesarean birth or a natural birth? Were you breastfed? Did you have any weird viruses? Did you fall off the change table? Is there anything that's happened? And it is amazing what comes out. It's like, wow, okay. Oh, so you got jaundice when you were 11 and you continue to have elevated liver markers. Okay, well, you obviously something has happened. Perhaps you have liver parasites that we need to be working on. So there's this real ability to help them zoom out, but then also helping them connect. As you said, it's the different body systems that all work together in this beautiful way, but it's tackling things one thing at a time so as not to overwhelm the system.
Yeah, doing that health inventory, that I did the same thing when I was trying to be prepared for my doctors and trying to be a good self-advocate. I had created a complete health
Well
history.
done.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it was insightful because you kind of remember, oh, I had chicken pox at such and such an age, and I remember I had this rash at such and such an age, or I had bronchitis. But when you start putting it down on paper and you're able to look at it, like you said, from that 30,000 level view and start
Mm-hmm.
seeing the patterns or the things that are connecting, that's where it's really powerful. And I think people dismiss or don't
Mm.
realize that, yes, you can go back and heal things that happened 20, 30 years ago. There's still things happening in your body, and we're living organisms and we're always changing, but there are things that you may have done as a child that you can still heal from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially
And I
the
don't think,
traumas.
oh my gosh, I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people really appreciate how trauma lives in the body, and particularly for us women as we get to perimenopause, is a very clear linkage between like unresolved trauma and then the onset of other conditions,
Mhm.
plus more extreme perimenopausal symptoms, because
Mhm.
it's a dysregulation of the nervous system. So if you've had a trauma, the way you perceive certain events or certain things in your day-to-day life could be triggering your nervous system unknowingly. So you just continue to have this inflammation that's driving up in your system and edging you to dysregulation. So that's a huge part of it. And we've all had trauma, big T,
Yeah.
little t. We all have our stuff.
Right. So true. And it makes sense if you think about it from the perspective that our brains are wired to protect us.
Mhm.
So, if you ate a big, bright red berry and you got really sick, back to the paleo times of life,
Mhm.
if that human being ate that red berry and got very sick, the brain is programmed to remember that so you don't eat the berry again. So,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just like a programming of the things that have hurt us or have made us ill that we want to avoid. Well, when you have a car accident or something traumatic, or even somebody bullying you on a playground or whatever it might be, those memories stick with us if we don't really address them, because it's your brain saying that particular instance hurt me before and threatened my life. So I'm going to put all of my guard up on that particular kind of thing again, anytime it comes up. So if you can mind map some of those traumas that have come into your life, kind of like the health map, but a trauma
Mhm.
map, and then you really get a picture for the kinds of things that are happening in people's pasts and it's still affecting them.
And just on that point, I think it's really important to recognize that if you're on some form of health journey, that there are different modalities that are going to be helpful in terms of getting you to your goal, particularly where there's things like trauma involved, doing some targeted trauma therapy. I can advise to somebody, I really think that this is something that's playing into how you're feeling, how you're showing up, your nervous system, etc. And I could point them, maybe going to breath work or to, somebody who does EMDR or something like that to support them. It's trying to get them to create their network of practitioners who can hold the space for them, because there's never going to be a one size fits all practitioner to support somebody.
Yeah, it requires a lot of different kinds of things, and what might work for one person may not work for the next.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's why I've had people who kind of complain to me, or exasperation. They're like, oh, there's so many different diets out there. It's hard to know even which one's right. That's because there isn't one right. It depends on your body. What is right for one person may not be completely right for the next person. So you really do have to listen to your body and see what is it that's going to work well for you.
No, that's the tricky thing, right? Because so many people are just waiting for a prescription and are kind of unwilling to do that experimentation to actually see what works for them. So I'm very much one that gives guidelines around, like, this is a good way to eat. Like, this is what balanced macros look like. And then we can then start to work on, okay, well, this isn't really working for me. Okay, well, then make this tweak. Rather than saying, like, this is how you have to eat.
Right.
Because absolutes
are
good for some people, but there are other people that it just sends them running a mile.
Right.
Like, no, don't tell me what I can and can't do. Are you crazy?
Exactly. So you're giving them the pillars. And then from there, you can manipulate it, whether some people can eat gluten, some people cannot. Some people don't like citrus and other people do. And so you really do have those cornerstones of good eating that can then be tweaked as you move forward into trying to get the exact right fit for that person.
And it also may change, because if somebody's in a healing phase, just say they are type 2 diabetic, they may actually need to go very low carb for a period of time. But then once they are, say they get their blood glucose under control and they're no longer type 2 diabetic, their blood glucose is balanced, then exercise, and particularly for women, and resistance training. I mean, exercise is important for everyone, but I'm talking specifically around women, and resistance training and really working to support our bodies to function the way that they are going to thrive in your 80s and your 90s. Like, whatever you want to be doing in those years of your life, you need to be setting yourself up for that now. So resistance training, HIIT training is very important for that power and strength. So with that, you actually need carbohydrates. So staying on a very low carbohydrate diet indefinitely is going to compromise your ability to achieve that pillar. So it's thinking about chunking down your goals for each phase that you're in. So in the healing phase, that may require you to go very low carb, to count your calories, to count your macros, all of that. And then when you move into the phase of, okay, so now your metabolism is working very well, now your goal is to build muscle and to build your power. So there, we're going to be tweaking the nutrition again based on that specific goal. There's another example is if someone's got horrendous gut issues and they've got parasites or candida or something like that, then we'll be going through a specific protocol to heal the gut. And that will be the focus of that point in time. And then you can move on to another type of goal. For some people, they may need to be off gluten for life. Like, just say they've got thyroid issues or other autoimmune conditions, just stay off gluten. There's too much out there that says it's not a good thing. Particularly where it's non-organic and sprayed with glyphosate. So so then, then that person, I have to say, just stay off it. We're worried about your levels of inflammation. Not worth it.
Yeah, there are phases for sure. And I think sometimes it's easy when you're trying to lose weight, it's easy to get your mind into a place where you're like, I'm never going to be able to have whatever favorite food is. But I like how you said that you have to just really consider it as a phase. We're just going to have a healing phase here where we're not going to do a couple of these things. Well, that doesn't mean you can't ever have your favorite food again. And yet I've found actually my own healing journey that after fasting for, multiple water fasts, I found that the things that I really loved before don't taste the same that they used to. My taste buds change and my body composition changes, and the item that I really loved at one point in my life just has a different flavor to me now. So we do change, and the things that we crave will change, but and sometimes the things that we need for healing will change as well. We have to shift as we go.
Absolutely. And I think if you approach life with a growth mindset that, things are always changing and you're not always going to be like, I don't know, a meat and potatoes kind of girl.
Yeah.
If somebody who's like, I worked with somebody recently who was like, "Ugh, I don't know what to do because I just don't like any vegetables." I'm like, really? Let's kind of break that down. She's like, oh, it just always tastes so bland and all these things. So I just gave her some simple suggestions around how to cook the vegetables in a way that made her feel it was more indulgent. I'm like, just pan fry, I don't know, the broccoli and a little bit of grass-fed butter. That's okay.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm loving my vegetables. Like, amazing.
Yeah,
And
I think
before she'd really put herself forever in a bucket of, I don't like vegetables. I'm
Mhm.
like, we've got to stop these absolutes about who I am because life is long and
Mhm.
it's very boring if you continue just to be the same every day.
It's so true. Well, and I don't know about you, but I grew up on vegetables that were mainly from a can, that were soggy, and really horrible. I
Yep.
was like, ugh. So my husband and I always joke about anything that anybody says that they don't like, it's probably because they haven't had it prepared really, really well.
Yes.
Yeah. But we have an amazing Brussels sprout recipe that we just love, and our kid loves it. But before that, my idea of Brussels was the canned, soaked, smooshy, really,
Oh
really
my
not
gosh.
tasty, right? So I am completely with you there for anyone listening who has self-labeled themselves as not liking vegetables. It might just be you haven't tried it prepared the right
Yeah, in
way.
the right way. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got a whole world of amazing tastes and flavors and textures that you're missing out on. So, like you said, with that growth mindset, to be open to trying something different, you might love it. And it'll be good for your body too.
Exactly. And it does take us a while to change our habits. So it's consistency actually
Yeah.
as well. It's like if you what do they say? You've got to encourage a child to try something, I think 30 times before they can actually decide if they like it or not.
Wow.
So same thing, try that with an adult.
It's so true. So true. Yeah. All right. Well, integrative medicine and holistic health. I love it. I love it. Looking at the whole person from the top of their head to their tips of their toes and all the things that have happened to us from day one till now. All those things really make a big difference. So, you have a practice called Tiny Voice. Tell us about that.
So my nickname is actually Tiny. I'm quite short. And really what it is, going back to that story that I shared about my friend who passed away, is that she wasn't actually listening to her intuition. She wasn't hearing the voice of her body. And all of us are getting feedback from our bodies every single day.
Mm.
But many of us are so tuned out, so busy, so detached that we don't hear it. And then what ends up happening is the whispers become louder and shouts, and then we end up with a diagnosis or a condition. So my business is really all about encouraging or supporting people to bring their bodies to a place of balance so
Mhm.
that they are able to hear their tiny voice
Yeah.
before it becomes a shout. Because when our bodies are out of balance, there is so much going on that you can't decipher the wood for the trees. I'm just always bloated, but that's just how I am. Or I'm always constipated. That's just how I am. And it's so incredible when I've worked with somebody for a period of time and they've really worked to bring the sense of balance to their bodies, really nourishing their bodies, their minds. And then they eat something that they used to eat. And now, because their body is so clean and so used to eating the things that really nourish it, they will have a reaction straight away and they'll be
Mm.
like, wow, okay, that doesn't work for me.
Mm.
And they can start to see, oh, well, now when I drink alcohol, then I feel terrible the next morning. Whereas
Yeah.
before they were just like drinking all the time and kind of just, I'm so tired. I'm like, well, maybe this is a habit you need to relook at.
Yeah.
And when they do and they take it on, which can take some time, they then start to really understand and feel what I'm teaching them. Because I think it's all fine to hear something theoretically, but it's when somebody starts to feel it themselves and starts to get the feedback from the body themselves that they can really understand it and then embody that principle kind of going forward.
I love the way you position that. Like the tiny voice of our body. Although you being called tiny, that's extra cute. I love that.
I know. So it's like, listen to me until you can hear your own body.
There you go. Right. And I think what you said is so key, that so many of us are just like, we're used to it. We're so used to how we feel, and we're used to feeling kind of cruddy, and we just think that's normal. And there's so much I could just say, from the healing that I've been on, I feel so much more amazing than I ever knew I even could. After changing my diet and looking at things. And I think people get stuck in that, no, this is just how I am. Or even worse, we hear everybody say, oh, that's just age. That's just aging. No, it doesn't have to be aging. There are ways to combat that by just changing how you eat and how you move and how you spend your time and what you spend your thoughts on. And this whole fallacy that, oh, that's just the way I am. It doesn't have to stay that way.
That is my biggest irritation when someone's like, that's just what happens when you get old. I'm like, do not say that. Even my kids, like the one day my daughter she grabbed a stick and she's like, look, mommy, I'm an old lady. I'm like, no. Not all old ladies have to walk like that.
Right.
Don't. Said, I'm still going to be running at 90.
Exactly. Oh, real quick sidebar. My husband's grandmother got her second hip replacement at 98. And she continued to use the treadmill. She was the only one in her senior housing area that ever used the treadmill, so much so they wanted to put a brass plate with her name on it. She was always on that treadmill getting her exercise. She lived to be 102, and she was still walking and still strong and still.
Amazing.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be the old crumpled over using the cane kind of a future. So true.
There's a very powerful, like in my perimenopause intro course, I've got a very powerful image, which is a woman in her 80s who started bodybuilding, like she is fit, amazing. And then a woman who's obviously very overweight, like bent over with a walking stick, also the same age. You create your destiny. Your habits now create your destiny. So it's a very, very critical time for our health in this perimenopause phase, because it's our opportunity to really lean into what our body is asking for. And so it's like the sliding doors analogy, like which way you're choosing. You know, if people ignore it, then, you know, it's very difficult to come back from dis-ease in the body, but it's so much easier to optimize your health when you're still healthy and there are a few things that you want to tweak.
Totally. And I'm just going to, one quick message, what public service announcement for anyone listening. If you can't do this for yourself, if you're 60 pounds, 70 pounds overweight, and you just feel like, well, that's just the way I am, I want you to think about the people you love who are going to need to take care of you in another 20 years and all the pressure that's going to be on them because you didn't make changes for your health now. It's a huge difference when your loved ones are taking care of you or not having to take care of you because you took care of yourself. It's just such a huge, empowering thing. And what a gift to do for the people that love you, to just take good care of yourself so they don't have to be doing some of the things that you don't want them to have to do for you. So,
and I also see it as such a lost opportunity to miss out on those years, because when you are able-bodied and you have energy and you're mobile, you have developed so much wisdom and you've got so much to share that it's such a waste not to be out there sharing, engaging with young people and trying to help them, give them a steer. Like we need this. We need the different generations to be stuck into the community, because that's how we all grow. That's how we all learn. And you need to be well in order to do that.
So true. Well, I'm going to have to sign up for your class, my friend. I think there's
Very
just so
welcome
much,
to.
so much wisdom there. I just think we'd have a blast on top of it. So we have to decide on. So I want to just thank you so much for your time and just being with us today. It's just a joy to hear a little bit about what you're doing over there and with your business. And how would people find your tiny voice practice? How would they do that? Yeah.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram, which is your_tiny_voice. My website is ytvhealthcoaching.com. And I'm going to be running a 90-minute masterclass to go deep on perimenopause, the hormonal shifts, etc., which may not work for the time zones, but it'll be recorded.
Okay.
So that is really your one-stop shop to understand hormones, what they do, why they matter, what goes on when our hormones shift, what you can do, like your action plan, where hormone therapy fits in, where supplementation fits in, where lifestyle fits in. So that's going to be a really empowering session for anybody who is 35 plus. Even if you're in menopause, I think it's helpful to understand what's going on because you may still not be feeling the way you want to, and there's a lot that you can do.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. So I can share the link for you to share. And otherwise, I'm running my next release of my midlife nutrition course, which is going deep on the nutritional side and certain lifestyle practices that support nutrition. Otherwise, just sign up. I've got so many free resources, so I can share some of those with you to share with your listeners as well.
Okay. I'll make sure I get those from you. We'll put those in the show notes so people can find this. So, great. So I just want to say thank you again for being with us today and just sharing your wisdom and introducing yourself and your programs to us. And I just really appreciate your time. So thank you, Sheryl.
Thanks for having me. We should do it again.
Yes, I'd love that as well. We'll do it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Alrighty. Bye.
Oh, what a great conversation. I just love learning from Sheryl and hearing her wisdom and learning with her. She is a genuine soul. And I had a really hard time narrowing it down for the takeaways today because there were so many bits of good wisdom in this conversation. But I do have 9 takeaways for you. Number 1, learning your body's language. There are a lot of tests that you can use to provide metrics, which will help you have specific examples of what your body's health is looking like. You can do blood panels or hair analysis, but a lot of those functional medicine types of tests are not covered by typical insurance programs. Some countries do cover them, some do not. But knowing your body's language and understanding your own symptomology, that kind of approach is 100% available to every one of us. And guess what? It's free. But it does require us to be really deeply connected to our habits, to really understand how we feel, why we feel the way we feel, what makes us feel better, what makes us feel worse, and to be our own self-advocate. So a lot of the accountability shifts to the actual person. The doctor isn't the one who gets you well. You get yourself well. But of course, with the guidance and the advice, not the command, but the guidance and the advice from your doctor. You and I need to get more in touch with ourselves and resist that societal norm of being so busy, preoccupied, stressed, and distracted that we never can even hear that tiny voice that's inside our bodies crying out for help. Number 2, the second puberty. Perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, this season of life is more than just a celebration or, for some, a mourning of a woman who no longer has their monthly cycle. Your body is changing. And if you haven't made it there yet, your body will change physically, emotionally, hormonally. And it's time we start talking about this sooner. Young women before the age of 30 have to understand this is an inevitable part of your future. If you know you want children, then no, you can't just focus on your career and wait until your 40s. Some women have early menopause, which impacts fertility, and it can create devastating heartaches, maybe even worse than the heartache of missing the chance to climb that career ladder. The season of menopause can affect inflammation, your ligaments, of course, your emotions. It's an entire body affair because there are hormone receptors in every single part of our body. So when our hormones are changing like that, it impacts us systemically. Number 3, what is holistic health or integrative health? Well, it's more than just the food you put on your plate. Holistic health includes all the various pillars which affect our health and well-being, which include nutrition, exercise, the process of detoxifying, stress management, sleep management, emotional health, making sure your nervous system and your hormones are balanced, and of course, mindset. Mindset is huge. Holistic medicine is really looking at the whole person to see what helps to support your body and your mind to work as well as they can together. Number 4, autoimmune issues can be cured or put into remission as it may be. No, you don't just have to live with it forever. And no, it doesn't need to be your future reality forever. But it does take a process of learning your body and making different choices and taking massive action. Then recalibrating, taking more action, and recalibrating again. But never lose the belief that you can and will be healed. How we think has so much power. We become our thoughts. So if you don't believe that healing is going to happen, then you're probably right. It won't. Number 5, you have to deal with your trauma. People really don't realize or appreciate how much damage ongoing trauma can have as it continues to live in our body. So if you haven't dealt with your trauma, the way you're perceiving things day to day could really be triggering your nervous system unknowingly. So you just continue to have that inflammation that continues to drive your system and edging you toward more and more dysregulation. So as difficult as it may be to go there, you have to deal with your trauma. And once you do, there's such a peace on the other side of that. Number 6, no, you are not just getting old. The choices you make today, regardless of your age, lays the foundation for your future health. So don't neglect your future you. Exercise and resistance training work to support our bodies so they can function and even thrive in your 80s and your 90s. Start small, start walking, do resistance training just with your own body weight. This is really like the sliding doors effect. The active, dis-ease, and pain-free life that you want to enjoy someday, that's exactly the life that you need to be implementing for yourself. If you don't know what I mean by the sliding doors effect, check out the movie Sliding Doors starring Gwyneth Paltrow. So think of your grandkids, the travel that you want to do, the places you want to see, the wisdom and the impact you can make from the future healthy you. If your life is cut short or riddled with pain and dis-ease, you won't be able to do the things which you might be assuming today will be part of your future. But you are the only one who can make those dreams a reality. And it starts with how you treat yourself and your body today. Number 7, adopt a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is one that believes that you can't learn or you can't grow. It's just the way you are. It's like there's no meaningful change that can happen. But a growth mindset is one where someone believes change is possible, even if it might take a long time and maybe a lot of effort. So don't let those disappointments shove you into a fixed mindset pattern. You can grow and learn, and you can change. You can evolve. Thousands of years of proof to that very point. So be encouraged, my friend. Be encouraged. You can change. Number 8, picky eaters, pay attention. First, check your mindset. Are you being open to changing? If you are, then if there are things you think you don't like, let your mind be open to trying them prepared differently. Vegetables can be savory and indulgent, but if your memory of old squishy canned vegetables is like mine, you'll need to see it to believe it, and that's okay. But adopt that growth mindset we talked about before and be willing to try things that are new. You may not have liked it in the past, but realize that your body's always changing. Your taste buds are always changing. And by limiting yourself by saying, no, I just don't like that, you might be missing out on something really tasty and so good for you. Vegetables can taste so good. Number 9, and finally, are you listening to and are you hearing your body's tiny voice? All of us are getting feedback from our bodies every single day. But we are often so tuned out, so busy and detached that we don't even hear it. Then the whispers become louder, they become shouts. And when we continue to ignore our bodies, then we end up with a diagnosis or some chronic condition. So please pause and learn to pay attention and enjoy trying to decode the mystery of your own body's language so you know what you need before it's too late. Thank you so much for listening or watching today. And by the way, if you are listening only, I'll just remind you that this podcast is also available on YouTube. So the link is in the show notes if you want to watch the conversation and meet my friend Sheryl Carroll visually. And remember, Sheryl's got an upcoming masterclass to teach you about the phases of menopause. It is, as she says, your one-stop shop to understand hormones, what they do, why they matter, what goes on when our hormones shift, and what you can do, like action plan, where hormone therapy fits in, where supplementation fits in, where lifestyle fits in. So stop on over to Sheryl's website if you're interested in learning more. And again, the links are here in the show notes. If you're enjoying the podcast, please share it with your friends and family and write a review right here wherever you're listening and watching. Also, if you have any tips or ideas or topics you'd like me to cover, please send those over to my production team in an email. Send it to podcast@lisaroers.com. Thank you again for listening and watching. God bless you, and we'll see you back here next week at the Sunshine Cafe.